One of the bigger issues plaguing society today is the way that activism has been married to academia. And if you look at the Loudoun County situation, if you're not familiar, in Virginia, in a high school, there was a girl who was sexually assaulted in a girl's bathroom at the end of May last school year by a quote-unquote boy in a skirt. And all summer there have been parents attacking the school board at these parent-teachers meetings, and all these confrontations have been on the news, but the mainstream media has really suppressed this story because it doesn't meet the narrative, and the school board actually worked to cover up this story. I mean, they said to the father to his face in June at a school board meeting when he was like, my daughter was raped at school, the school board said, no, that's not what happened. Because when academia is so concerned with this sort of activist narrative, they're actively manipulating reality to meet that. And when you introduce activism, which is an activity, it's result-oriented, into academia, which is also result-oriented, you're bombarding students with this result-oriented psychology, which is causing them to engage in this sort of mental illness. I mean, it's a cause and effect, and you can connect the dots. And I'm not saying that every person who experiences any sort of gender confusion is mentally ill, but if we're looking at the DSM-5, gender dysphoria is on there for a reason, and I think it's like 0.006% of the population is diagnosed with it specifically, or 0.06%. I'm not a psychologist, don't quote me, but from a mental illness perspective, like 3% of high schoolers are experiencing self-reporting transgenderism or going through some sort of gender confusion or thinking about transitioning. I mean, that's epidemic levels if it's 3%. I mean, 3% of the entire population of the world is autistic, and that's diagnosed. And so you're going to have only a certain percentage, an extremely small percentage of people legitimately be diagnosed with a mental illness, but then we're going to extend the definition and make it sort of in this arbitrary purgatory state so that anybody can like walk into that space without any sort of parental consent or or reaching any sort of professional in a way that has legitimate objective arbitration or sort of helping someone reach legitimate self-realization. It's just completely arbitrary right now. And so a boy can walk into a girl's bathroom in Virginia and rape a girl and get away with it. Or I mean, who knows if he even got away with it. They're suppressing all the information. Nobody knows what's happening. That's the problem. This entire school board should be fired. I mean, they're using our kids' lives for political gain. And if it was a boy sexually assaulting a girl, I mean, that's hypocrisy. There's a double standard there. Where are the schools disciplining students for me tooing all these guys or girls? I mean, where are the schools trying to suppress the amount of false accusations that are happening or the amount of sexual assault that's pervasive? I mean, it's so weirdly one-sided where it's weird because for the sort of transgender activism initiative, the very situations like the Wee Spa situation in Los Angeles where a man, the biological man, exposed himself in front of women, and women went to the front desk and said, hey, my young daughter just saw a penis, and they're like, no, she didn't, that was a man. It's like, what? You're manipulating reality it's just lying. It's just deceptive, and you can't. The issue is we're validating people's self-deception, and that's really dangerous because it puts people in a state where they think they're entitled to manipulate reality to suit their feelings all the time, and people think that their feelings are paramount 24/7. And if somebody doesn't adhere to their feelings, it doesn't validate their feelings, they're the bad guy, and they're automatically, vehemently mischaracterized as bad, the person who is potentially dismissing someone's feelings. And when you give that individual so much power and you say, well, if your feelings are hurt, that gives you that it's your prerogative to treat anybody vitriolically. Well, that's a really dangerous psychological paradigm, because what that means is anytime you engage in anything uncomfortable, you are reacting with a inauthentic anger. That anger that you have towards yourself, you end up projecting onto other people. I'm not comfortable with me, so I'm going to take it on the world around you. When in reality, if you just addressed what was going on in an objective way, not in an activist way or a result-oriented way, and went towards the unknown, you might actually find out what's going wrong. Oh, I'm projecting my issues with my mother onto everyone, or I'm projecting the issues with my father onto anyone, or I'm projecting the issues with my brother onto everyone. I'm people pleasing. I'm seeking validation. Whatever it is, it can manifest into these social contagions like bulimia or anorexia or transgenderism, especially when it isn't specifically diagnosed as gender dysphoria. Transgenderism is extremely symptomatically parallel to to bulimia or anorexia. It's a social contagion. It's the social validation of it. I mean, they get this dump of serotonin from being quote unquote prescribed or ascribed brave, and then that goes away, and then people are left with just being changed, forever. And then you wonder why people bring up these sort of slippery slope examples of sexual assault in a public school bathroom, and then for academia to hide that or manipulate that information for their own benefit. It's really, really scary that's where our children are being sent into this extremely dangerous environment where, one, they're obviously not safe. Two, if they are hurt in any way, that information is going to be deceptively manipulated to achieve some sort of activist goal. And 3, when parents try to fight back about this, they're somehow going to be you put into a box of like domestic terrorists, or the FBI are going to search. If you stand up against your school system, you're going to get an FBI sort of red flag. You know, they're gonna mark you in a social credit system. It's like parents should be able to advocate. The school board works for the parents. Parents pay the salaries of the school board. What sort of power do you think these Gestapo have? They can't control and manipulate information like it's the Soviet Union. I mean, they're throwing people into this social gulag. You know, it's like I just want to see, the hypocrisy is unbelievable. It's like, if we're going to cover up a student using these transgender rules that they were debating to rape a girl, then we should be disciplining these students who are making up lies and attacking people. It's the same thing. Like, we need to be disciplining students equally, but no, it's like we're happy when there's a fall from grace for one kind of student, but then if another student does something bad, we want to cover it up because it doesn't meet the mainstream narrative. It's very dangerous having academia try to align itself with the pharmaceutical industry and the media and entertainment and the political spectrum and CNN, and for CNN to be dictating a school's policy decision-making. That's way too much energy, and weirdly like sexual control energy, into a child's psyche. And that's why children are so mentally ill right now and making all these decisions that are detrimental to their health, because they're in an environment that's so the vitriolically result oriented, from their parents, from the school, from the media, social media. It's all, you better meet this. It's oddly puritanical, and it's dark, and it's like, objectify yourself, but at the same time, if you have any sex, you're going to be written off as a slut. But if you don't have sex, then you're a pussy. It's like, it's so dark, and it's almost like the powers that be want children to be confused in this way, because then if you just keep these adolescents confused and damaging themselves and on drugs or whatever, then as soon as they reach that cusp of late adolescence and adulthood, they're easily able to be controlled. Then academia can come in and finish the brainwashing and turn them into little peons who become equally as result-oriented in their daily lives, and just introduce more banality and insipid behavior into society, and just keep trying to manipulate the world to adhere to our feelings and validate the lowest common denominator behavior, and just it's creating a world for the meek, but in a really dark way. Like, this idea that the meek will inherit the earth. Well, it's like the meek will inherit the earth by using like psychological and biological manipulation and destroy people from the inside, and like hinder people's souls with like vicious social terrorism. I mean, that's the ideology that this cult of wokeism is adhering to. It's like, take notes on people and then hurt them later, and then if a person who's using transgender rules, like in the name of equality, raping a girl, let's cover that up, as opposed to talking about it because it's a nuanced conversation. I mean, it's so cowardly, and we have to point out that cowardice. It is what it is, and you know, we all have to band together and say, hey, this is fucked up.